canonical timeline placement. So ever since it was coming out, people have liked to theorize, what if Hyrule Warriors was canon? And the big thing in that is, where in the timeline would it go? When this game was coming out, people were first speculating that this could be the Great War that happens at the start that was mentioned in Skyward Sword. However, after seeing the events in the game as well as stuff that's just happened in the real world since, people have decided to mostly change this and place it at the end of the timeline, but before now Breath of the Wild, and I'll be explaining that in the next entry, which goes hand in hand with this one. Hyrule Warriors being canon is how Breath of the Wild happens. So this is a theory that could drag on a bit, but I'll just try to briefly summarize it. But you know how in Breath of the Wild there's elements and Easter eggs and people from all the different timelines and stuff from the Zelda universe that all became one at the end of Breath of the Wild, because Breath of the Wild was at the very end of the timeline as the merger to it. Well, that doesn't seem to make sense considering some of the races there are supposed to be evolutionary lines and descendants of the other ones, the Rutos I'm looking at compared to the birds. Sorry, I forgot their names, I've barely slept. And then there's also locations in Breath of the Wild that are just from totally different timelines and stuff, and it doesn't really make much sense of how they can suddenly all be there together. Well, Hyrule Warriors, if you remember the plot, you know that all of these different eras and timelines and stuff, they all end up coming together into the same world with each other. And just to briefly describe it, this is seen as the explanation as to how Breath of the Wild can possibly happen, which is that Hyrule Warriors happened before it and brought all of these different people and locations and influences together. Zelda's Singing. So this is a really interesting, technically cut piece of content. I say technically, I'll explain why in a little bit, but it's exactly as it says. It's Zelda singing, she's singing Zelda's lullaby, and I think unlike the Scary Toy Story 2 stuff, I can actually show you what this sounds like, so take a listen. It's thought that this is supposed to be a victory animation sound clip because, well, where it's placed is with all the other victory animations, so duh. And also just because of the length of it, it wouldn't fit an attack. However, something that's really interesting about this is, if you remember the weapon swap glitch, when Zelda used the summoning gate while dancing, this is actually the voice clip that would play for her, and it's really interesting and odd. I have no idea why the game would go to that for something that you're not even supposed to see, and something that's supposed to be a victory animation voice that's unused, and yeah, it's just a really interesting mystery on top of a patched glitch that involves unused content. Ganon and Giant Cuckoo weapon IDs. So you probably know that in this mode that nobody plays called Ganon's Fury, you play as Ganon, and eventually if you're fucking insane and play it enough to somehow ace everything, you can unlock the Giant Cuckoo as a character, and these aren't normal traditional characters, this is the only mode where you can play as them, and kind of a waste. But the way that they're listed in the game is that they're in the slots of all the other regular characters and weapon IDs. Everything is listed and organized based on character and weapon, based on how you get them, how they're arranged on the select screen. But these two, they come after Tingo's Balloon, I believe, and then before Ganon's Trident. If you know your history of this game, you know that's the last DLC for the Wii U, and then beginning with the Legend stuff. So they're at the end of that. However, what's really even more interesting about this is that this is still the case for Legends, which they're not in, but their ID slots are still in there. And apparently, if you somehow transfer the save data for Legends onto a Definitive Edition version, I don't know how you do that, probably through hacking or something, I don't think it's a normal feature. But if you do that, and there's no memory or code for Ganon and Giant Cuckoo on there, then it can fuck things up in Definitive Edition, and it'll crash or try to give weapon slot IDs for them that's based on different character movesets, and yeah, it's an interesting thing to see that left over on Legends in that fashion, and apparently it also shows that Definitive Edition is mostly more of a port of Legends than it is the Wii U version. Volga is a nicer guy and Wizzro's depressed. This is subtext that I've personally picked up with, like, from playing the game, and I like to think some other people did due to, like, becoming attached with these characters, but, like, Volga's just, like, simply, like, a fighting-loving guy who, like, joins Sia by force, as you, like, know if you played the story mode, and eventually he overcomes her, like, with his own pride and, like, not wanting to be controlled and shit. And, like, through some of his dialogue, like, none of it is, like, super, like, malicious and stuff. In fact, he even has, like, a really nice smile in some of his portraits, as funny as that sounds. And, like, one of his win quotes, too, is just like, hey, how about you try again next time when you're a bit stronger? And, I don't know, it's just pretty cool, and I'm glad, like, you can kind of unite him with the elders, as I'm going to talk about in the next entry. As for Wizzro, he's always seems like a bit more, like, sadistic and betrayerous, but, like, again, he was also just kind of, like, being forced to do shit. It was probably, like, always seen as weak and stuff, and, I don't know, just, like, the general vibe of his dialogue, too, just gives off, like, depression vibes. Like, he's always like, yeah, I took the keep, whatever, and he's like, another one done, how drawl, and it's like, I don't know, it kind of gives some insight onto, like, maybe why he behaves the way he does, and maybe, like, with just a bit more, like, positive influence, he can be a little bit more like Volga and the others. Sense of community and companionship. This is something I feel very strongly about this game for myself when I play it, and it's something that made revisiting it always really enjoyable, especially for the past few summers when I was playing Definitive Edition, and also, I guess, like, telling my friends about it. But yeah, this is, like, always just, like, a strong, like, feel that I got during the game. Like, I've always got the sense that, like, the characters, especially in the adventure mode, are just, like, really, like, helping out with the world, and it feels good to, like, see all of the maps get cleared out in A-ranked. Like, you're really, like, cleaning things up everywhere and traveling around, and, like, all of the characters just, like, feel like that they're good friends with each other, as, like, silly as this all sounds. Like, even, like, the past, like, villains, like, they all decide to, like, make, like, a little reform, like, all hang out with each other as a group, and you get to, like, make your own little teams to send out on levels, and I don't know, it's just a really nice and fun feeling, and I feel it here much more strongly than, like, even in Age of Calamity, where, like, it's not even, like, a subtext, it's just something that's, like, in the game. But yeah, I feel like this is, like, part of the reason why it's, like, one of my favorite games ever. Anyway, that does it for the last, like, kind of normal layer. Next one goes to, like, really specific and deep personal thoughts and theories and subtext and other weird, obscure, forgotten shit about this game. So I'll see you all next time.